Alright, so picture this. It's a quiet Saturday morning. I'm in my kitchen, sipping coffee, scrolling through emails, planning a lazy day at home, when I see one that makes me freeze. The subject line reads, HOA Scheduled Event Notification. I click it, thinking it's probably some boring maintenance notice or a reminder about community rules. But no, what I find inside makes my jaw drop. Apparently, a full wedding ceremony is scheduled. At my house, yes, my backyard. My private property. And apparently, I don't even need to be notified. The email calmly explains that this is part of some community fund initiative and that the HOA handled all the details. My name isn't even mentioned anywhere. I blink. I read it again. I laugh nervously. Surely, this has to be a mistake, right? I immediately start calling, emailing, leaving voicemails. And then, they respond. With that polite, smug tone that basically says, sorry, but it's scheduled, and there's nothing you can do. And that's when it hits me. This isn't just a mistake. It's illegal, totally unauthorized, totally insane. I take a deep breath, staring out at my backyard. I could let this happen. Or I could fight back. And I start realizing very clearly that if I'm going to stop this, I'm going to need a plan. Because some battles require more than just an email reply. Asterisk, asterisk. So after the initial shock wears off, I sit down and start digging. I pull out my property deed, zoning laws, HOA bylaws, basically every piece of paperwork that proves this is my house, my land. And nobody has the right to schedule a wedding here without my consent. And guess what? Every single document screams the same thing. Illegal. There's literally no clause anywhere that gives them the authority to override my property rights. Now, here's the thing. I'm a patient guy, but I also know that sometimes politely asking isn't enough. Emails, calls, polite requests, they rarely scare bureaucrats. And these HOA folks? They clearly weren't afraid of anything, so I start thinking bigger. How do I make it impossible for them to ignore me? How do I make them realize that this is my property, my rules? And that's when it hits me. I need to show them, in no uncertain terms, that I mean business. Something dramatic. Something unforgettable. Something Bulldozer level dramatic. Asterisk, asterisk. So I make the call. I tell the local equipment rental company I need their biggest bulldozer. The kind that could basically eat a small car for breakfast. The guy on the phone laughs at first, probably thinking I'm joking. I assure him, dead serious, nope, not joking. Within 24 hours, this massive yellow beast is parked in my driveway. I step back and just stare at it. It gleams under the sunlight like a warning, like it's saying, don't mess with this house. And that's when it hits me. I now have leverage. I have the power to say, very clearly, that my property is mine. The HOA may have schedules, contracts, and paperwork, but I have the law and a 10-ton warning machine sitting in my driveway. I smile to myself, realizing this isn't just about stopping a wedding. This is about sending a message. Nobody messes with my property and gets away with it. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting. Asterisk, asterisk, of course. The HOA doesn't stay quiet. Within hours, emails start flooding in, threats disguised as polite reminders. Letters arrive in the mail, warning me about community violation penalties if I interfere with the scheduled event. One email even had a subject line that read, "Please cooperate for the community." Cooperate? On my property? I laugh so hard I almost spill my coffee. They clearly think paperwork and polite threats are enough to intimidate me. But here's the thing. Every single threat they send only makes me more determined. Every line screams, they underestimated me. I realize something important. I'm not just defending my house anymore. I'm about to school the HOA in a very unforgettable lesson in property rights, And this time, words alone won't do. They need to see that I mean business. Asterisk, asterisk. The day of the wedding arrives, and I wake up to a parade of trucks, flower vans, and catering vehicles rolling into the neighborhood. It's absurd. Wedding planners, photographers, even a tiny marching band apparently. This HOA really went all out. I step outside, and there it is. My backyard, calm and empty, and in my driveway. The bulldozer, gleaming, intimidating, like a suburban beast ready to defend its territory. I take a deep breath and walk closer. I flip the ignition switch. The engine growls. It's a low, menacing sound, almost like a warning. This is not your property to commandeer. I can already hear the whispers from the HOA crew as they approach, confidently thinking they're about to set up the wedding. One of them even mutters under his breath, "Maybe this isn't a good idea." Too late. The stage is set. Today, my backyard is not just my home, it's my battleground. And everyone about to cross that driveway is about to learn exactly what that means. Asterisk, asterisk, they approach. Confident, papers in hand, thinking they're about to walk onto someone else's property without consequence. Little do they know, they're about to meet the homeowner, me and my very intimidating back up the bulldozer. I step into the driveway, hands on my hips, squinting slightly against the morning sun. The bulldozer sits behind me like a loyal, gleaming guard dog. Its engine hums softly, and I swear the rumble almost matches my heartbeat. This wedding is not happening. I say calmly, letting my words hang in the air like a storm cloud. You are on private property and you have no authorization whatsoever. One brave HOA rep, probably thinking he's the hero of the day, steps forward. Papers waving, he says, "Sir, the HOA has scheduled this event." I cut him off. I point to the bulldozer, and the look on his face changes instantly. Suddenly, I'm no longer just a homeowner. I am the law on two legs, backed by 10 tons of steel. You see this? I ask, voice steady but low. This is a bulldozer. This is my property. And this is your last warning. Step off my land, or things get messy. The emails, the polite letters, the threats, they all fade into irrelevance. You can almost hear their confidence cracking. One HOA rep gulps audibly, trying to maintain composure, but failing miserably. Then the absurdity hits. The photographers, planners, even the tiny marching band, they're all staring now, frozen in confusion. This isn't a wedding setup anymore. It's a standoff. I take a slow step toward the bulldozer, letting my shadow stretch across the driveway. The crew hesitates. One of them whispers something about calling the cops. I shrugged as if to say, "Go ahead. Try explaining this one." And here's the kicker they realize. In that moment, that no paperwork, no HOA rules, and certainly no charm can override a homeowner defending his property. Not when there's a bulldozer ready to back him up. Minutes feel like hours. Tension hangs in the air. The smell of diesel, the glare of the morning sun, the shuffling of feet on concrete hit all adds to the surreal scene. And I stand there, calm, confident, ready. Finally, one of the HOA reps mutters, "Maybe. Maybe we should rethink this." And just like that, the tide turns. The bravest ones start retreating, trying to save face as they shuffle back toward the street. And that's when I realize something important. I don't need to push the bulldozer. I don't need to make a scene. The mere presence of this machine and the confidence to use it, if necessary, is enough to stop them by the time the last HOA official retreats. Mumbling excuses and promises of policy reviews, the entire driveway is quiet. The wedding, canceled. The planners, confused, and me, standing victorious, hands on my hips, looking at a backyard that has never felt so much like my own kingdom. Asterisk, asterisk, just when I think the showdown is over, something unexpected happens. From behind the fences, cameras start popping up. Neighbors I barely know are peeking out, smartphones in hand, recording every second. Some even start live streaming, apparently. My backyard standoff isn't just a personal victory anymore, it's now content gold. People are watching a suburban homeowner versus the overreaching HOA with a bulldozer as the silent enforcer. And trust me, the expressions on the HOA faces, absolutely priceless. One HOA official tries to salvage the situation, flailing his arms and pointing at his paperwork. This is community tradition. He stammers. I just step closer to the bulldozer, letting it idle menacingly. Your tradition ends where my property begins, I say. Simple, calm, final dot. And that's when the true power of the moment hits me. I don't have to destroy anything. I don't have to make threats. The presence of the bulldozer, the legal knowledge in my back pocket, and the willingness to defend my property are enough. The HOA starts retreating faster now, realizing they've been caught on camera looking foolish. Their authority, their so-called control, it crumbles under the weight of common sense, legality, and a little bit of showmanship and the neighbors. They're cheering quietly, filming everything, and whispering among themselves. By the end of the morning, my backyard isn't just my property. It's a stage, a symbol, a lesson in standing your ground sometimes. The best victories aren't loud explosions or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes the threat of standing your ground is more powerful than anything else. By mid-morning, the HOA has officially retreated. Trucks, flower vans, and even the tiny marching band are all gone, rolling away like defeated invaders. The street is quiet again, except for the faint hum of the bulldozer idling in my driveway. I step out and take a deep breath. Victory never felt so sweet. The wedding is canceled. No damage has been done. No chaos erupted, except in the egos of a few very shocked HOA officials. And the beauty of it. I didn't have to break anything. I didn't have to escalate beyond the power of my presence and the law on my side. Just standing firm, showing I was prepared, was enough to turn the tables completely. Neighbors peek out, whispering congratulations. Some wave from behind fences. A few even laugh, shaking their heads in disbelief at the absurdity of the situation. And I can't help but smile. The backyard, once a battleground, is mine again. The bulldozer sits like a loyal sentinel, reminding anyone who dares approach that this is my space, my rules. Sometimes the smallest actions, the calm stand. The unwavering confidence make the biggest impact. And today, that impact is crystal clear. I defended my home, my rights, and my sanity against the overreach of an overconfident HOA. Asterisk, asterisk, later that day, I posted the story online. I shared the photos of the bulldozer in my driveway, the emails from the HOA, and even snippets of the standoff. Within hours, the story blew up. Comments, shares, and messages poured in from people all over the country. Suddenly, I wasn't just a homeowner. I was a symbol. A suburban warrior. Some even jokingly called me the bulldozer legend. The videos captured the tension, the humor, and the pure absurdity of the HOA thinking they could schedule a wedding on someone else's property. The HOA? Well, they quietly started updating their policies. No more scheduling events on private properties without homeowner consent. They didn't make a public apology, but their retreat was a clear acknowledgement that they'd overstepped. And me. I learned a couple of important lessons. First, always know your property rights. Second, sometimes showing that you're serious is more effective than any legal paperwork. And third, well, a little dramatic flair never hurts. Every time I look at my backyard now, I remember that day. Not just the absurdity, the tension, or the standoff, but the feeling of taking a stand, asserting my rights, and coming out on top. Sometimes it's not just about winning. It's about making sure people never forget that you own what's yours. Asterisk, asterisk. So here's the moral of the story. Always know your property rights. Always read the fine print. And sometimes, just sometimes, keep a bulldozer handy. The HOA thought they could push boundaries, schedule events on someone else's property, and get away with it. They were wrong. Totally wrong. And now, every time I look at my backyard, I smile, not just because it's mine, but because I stood my ground and reminded everyone what that really means. This wasn't just about a canceled wedding. It was about respect. It was about authority. It was about understanding that when someone oversteps, you don't just politely ask them to stop you. Make sure they never try it again. And if anyone ever thinks about pulling a stunt like this in the future, well, let's just say I have plans. Plans involving law, confidence, and yes, a bulldozer. Sometimes the law is enough. Other times, a little drama and a lot of presence make the difference. And in my case, it worked perfectly. Because at the end of the day, my house, my rules, my victory. Asterisk, and that's a wrap. A huge thank you to everyone for watching. This channel is nothing without this amazing community. If you have ideas for future videos, drop them down in the comments below. As always, subscribe if you're new here. Until next time, take care.